Hey traders, this is Taylor with Top Pick Trading. I want to give you guys a chart review today. Sorry, I got busy yesterday afternoon, so I wasn't able to do my normal Wednesday one, but figured I'd give you guys a nice little review on Thursday. So you can see we had what looks like a range through the overnight, and then maybe 30 minutes after the open, we started breaking down to the downside. And if you measure this leg right here, you can see we literally got a measured move to the tick, perfect measured move. It also corresponds at this blue dotted line. That's the range measured move. So either way you look at it, you get a measured move down from the two legs or from the range. And after that, get a nice little uptrend, kind of flatter, so not an extremely strong upward bias, but still a nice little confirmed channel here. It gets an overshoot, a break, and then it turns into a really bullish channel here. Typically, I don't really look to draw these trends off the breaks, but this one was holding really clearly, and the EMA was holding as well. So that ended up being its own trend, it seems. Get a break from that, a couple legs up, and then drops a little bit and goes sideways into the close. So let's talk about the trades. So 8 o'clock came right in here. We get this second entry short. Honestly, so far from the EMA, I wasn't considering this. Let me see what time it was. 8:09. It's turning. If you pull this up a little bit, it's the wick of that's turning right off the close. It's so far from the EMA on a second entry short with a clear break and nice little two legs up. So really nice bar. So I'll mark that as aggressive just because this trend, this high isn't quite as confirmed yet, but with that far away from the EMA, I think that's a pretty decent trade there. So push down, get a lower high here. The only reason I'm not marking this is because we're kind of back into the middle of that range. It's kind of moved far for a lower high, and also the bar's massive, 29 ticks. So no trade there. Even this one right here is 15, so keep that in mind. It does hold, pushes down strongly, bounces right off these overnight lows again. Still no, this is just a break, close outside of this golden trend, so still potentially looking for a retest, but it is range rules, so keep that in mind as well. We get this nice little trend up here. We got a break, two legs down, second entry long, but since this has not played out yet, I'm kind of scared to mark that, especially below the EMA. Not quite back at the support, so I think you got to lay off that personally. It does end up just reversing, pushes higher, chops sideways, nothing at the EMA here, kind of just floating. And then it turns, and then at this point, with where this turned, I ended up dragging this down. That looks like more of the highs. You can see we actually turned at this level right here with this wig too, so that's almost like a touch, and then a little failed breakout. Touch there, and a touch there. So this pushes strongly to the downside. Tighten this up a little bit. It gets a close outside and chops lower, turns sideways here. You get a triple test here, but a little bit congested and closing way too low to consider, in my opinion. Plus, this has already got the break in new low as well. We drop down, bounce a little bit before this overnight support, but it rallies out of here. And we get a second entry short right here, right off this key entry point. But the problem is, unless you drew it off those lows, which it does fit pretty good, personally, coming that close off the overnight lows, I'm not trusting this channel at this point. So right above the EMA too, so I'm not going to mark that. And even looking back, maybe this channel's confirmed. It looks a little weird, but since we got the second leg down from it, break right here, I went ahead and kept it for context purposes. But you can see that I didn't mark a trade off of it. Anyway, push lower here, bounced at the overnight support just a little bit, and then that was a strong move down, so wouldn't take a long blindly right there, and you can see why it would have burned you. Drops lower. Get a second entry here, bad bar, and then we get a third entry. Not quite back at the key entry point, kind of close to the EMA. So I just don't like the location of that or the context as quite as much. It is a nice bar, but I didn't mark that. Bounce at this support here, push higher. We get this is like a double bottom, so we get this really strong second entry here that breaks above, creates the new high on the micro uptrend, and then sells off really strongly right into the overnight lows. And that's the only reason I didn't mark it. Well, the size of it, 17 ticks, and also it's right into that overnight support. Like I mentioned, this channel just felt a little odd to me, so I wasn't sure. But then you get this lower high here, It's a nice confirmation setup. You can see that nice bull bar there is probably going to trap some of them. Pretty good bar, closing below those overnight lows. So I like that trade. Get a nice little scalp out of that. Yeah, about 3 points. Pushes higher at that same support level. My trend lines got moved a little bit. And then we turn right here, just kind of out in no man's land. EMA kind of holds here, but not really. Drops below as well. And at this point, this looks very V-shaped. Big up, big down, big up, fairly big down. So I wouldn't take anything in this mid-range area, even if there's not consistent support or resistance. There is consistent support, but even without consistent resistance, you can see we're clearly flopping on both sides of the EMA. So this is range type behavior. So staying out of the middle is pretty pertinent. The reason I marked this one is because it's not as clearly a range yet, because we've just got the one big up, and then we're coming back down, versus this one now we've got, 4 iterations of it. 1, 2, 3, 4. So hope that makes sense. Pushes lower. Get a close outside from this micro trend, a couple legs down. Get this micro uptrend back to the EMA, and at this point it looks like everything's played out. In real time, I was kind of flirting with this channel right here, but looking back, I don't think it's valid. So you can see right here, it gets pretty sideways. This is like a third entry. Really nice bar, but very congested. Then we get a lower high. Looking back, for those same reasons, I don't necessarily like this trade as much. It's very sideways. And the downtrend's played out. There is some room to both measured moves. So if you were thinking about that, maybe, but otherwise I'd probably lay off this, and you would have gotten a scalp out of it, but not much more. Pushes higher, and then we're just sideways through here, so I'd wait this out. We get like a breakout pullback, but there's also a little bit of support in this area, and it does close below that, but EMA is so flat, even on a breakout pullback, I'm kind of leery of marking that. And it looks like maybe you would have gotten a scalp out of that too. Yeah. Still, big bar, closing pretty far from that EMA. It's probably going to snap back, and you can see that it does since we're so sideways. Then it does confirm the EMA this time, though. Pushes down one more time. It's that measure move, literally to the tick. The bars are closing near that range measured move, so we've completed both measure moves now, so wouldn't surprise you if it reversed, and that's kind of what it starts doing. It's not a really strong reversal, kind of just pushes into that EMA and works sideways, but then we get a bigger trend here, so we get the strong push up, we got to break a new high, we got a second leg up. This is tempting, it's kind of a little trap, but problem is this uptrend's played out, and we're really just still really sideways here and congested. Tempting with 6 ticks on that nice little bar that could trap, but it's just not immediately obvious to me, the context here, so I didn't mark that. Pushes higher, get a lower high. We get a failure here, but kind of right into that EMA, and then it gets another, like a lower high here. Technically a second entry short as well. Just kind of sideways, so didn't mark that one. If we were still in kind of a more downhill environment, then maybe this one, but we've hit those measure moves, and we've got 2 strong legs up, and kind of in the middle of that area, so didn't mark that. Pushes down to support. We get a close outside the micro downtrend. Pushes higher. This is just V shapes again. This is range type behavior. Just get a first entry here. When we drop down, this is just another first entry. It's not quite back at the support. I didn't have this trend line yet. We really need, this kind of sets the trend line, doesn't confirm it, so unless you considered that, maybe it's a little bit tighter. Still 3 strong bears. This downtrend hasn't played out yet. We're not back at the support, so I think you want to lay off that one on a first entry. Then we get a higher low here, and then this is the same situation. We're just kind of flip-flopping around in the middle. And then we get a failed second entry short. The reason I like this one more is because it is a failure. It is mid-range, though. That's the downside. But this midline now, I've got it, this general area where I've got this red line. You really may have had it right here, and that aligns perfectly with it. This midline is now held, even if it fell through briefly, it bounced here, bounced here, bounced here, bounced here. So it's a bit like a triple test, even with the failed breakout here. Really nice bar. And you can bet it's probably going to rope in shorts. So that one, still a failure in the middle, so a little bit more aggressive, but a couple more reasons to like that one than some of these other mid-range trades. So that one rallies up pretty high. Get a failed breakout from that, comes down. Now we are really confirming that key entry point, but no setup. Pushes higher, we get a failure, but way above the EMA, right into this potential resistance. Pushes higher. This could be a close outside new high, but this fit pretty well too. So for that reason, I don't like taking any shorts up here. At this point, we're working in this clear trend line here. Drops down, we get a first entry, second entry, just a little bit sideways, but otherwise contextually just a gimme setup in my opinion. Coming off the midline of this, really good bar, nice setup bar as well. This needs an this little micro uptrend needs a retest, and EMA held 2 swings, so a little bit sideways like I said, but you can still see the action in here. It's up here, and a little bit sideways at this part, but then it sold down, then back up into that signal bar. And if you watch this form, it formed really nicely too, really fluently. I like that trade. Here we got a higher low. I marked it orange, meaning slightly too aggressive, and that, in my opinion, is for a couple reasons. Not quite back at the EMA yet, a little bit far, very close to this high right here. And now you can clearly see this is the 3rd time coming off the upper side of that trend line. So for that reason, I think it's a little bit too aggressive. If it formed back here, maybe, but oh, and also at this point, we do have 1 tick higher on this micro uptrend, so this more local price action could have played out. Not immediately obvious. It does push higher, and we turn off those overnight lows, acting as resistance now, and it's also an overshoot from this big channel. Pushes down right into that trend line, but we've got the overshoot, so we want to be careful. Plus, this micro downtrend's now probably in play, and you can see it did bounce temporarily, but then sold off here, just a first entry. So we get the close and new low from the blue downtrend. So now this golden uptrend has the close outside as well, so we're expecting probably a retest on that. We're strongly above the EMA, you get a failure, but it's really sideways. Then we come back, we get like this is just a first entry, but it's like 2 legs back kinda. It's also a triple test. And we got the context on our side because we're expecting an uptrend retest. So really nice bar there. Doesn't confirm this key entry point yet, 'cause it's just the first touch, but really nice bar on that triple test. I like that. Kind of like 2 legs back too, like I mentioned. That takes off to the upside. Get a close outside from that. Top sideways, comes down. Looking for a second entry to confirm this key entry point here. Fortunately, the second entry is a bad bar, so in my opinion, you can't take that. It's unfortunate. Pushes higher, chops sideways. And then we get a second entry right here, not a good bar, pushes back. The resistance here. Then we get just a first entry by the count. If you saw this as 2 broad legs back, then maybe you consider that one. It's also a double test. I would have liked 1 more test of this support level, call it a triple test, but I didn't mark it. But if you saw the 2 broad legs back, then maybe. But you can also see another reason that it's not as nice, because that signal bar never triggered until 2 bars later. So kind of sat sideways there, so that's a little nerve-wracking. It did that same thing the previous time at the support too. So didn't mark that. We got 2 legs up to a new high. Now we're right at that overnight resistance, range highs, and all the uptrends in my view have played out. Even the retest uptrends. This big one here has got to break in 2 legs up. This one here has got to break in a leg up. So this is a very typical type trap. We're coming off those overnight highs as well. We get 2 really strong bears right into the EMA. We get a second entry long that's very sideways with a good bar. This is like a typical late second entry that tries to lure people in. So you got to be careful of that. And I understand it being tempted with the setup and signal bar, but a couple clues here contextually, several clues here contextually to help you stay out of that. You can also see we just turned on that first entry right here. So you can't always think about it like that. Like for this one, the same thing happened. We turned right where we bought into it, but context was on our side a lot better. So for those reasons, I didn't mark this. I think you should avoid it. You may have gotten a 4-tick scalp. Let's see. Yeah, you would have gotten enough, just enough for a 4-tick scalp, but I'm not the biggest fan of that trade. Comes back and gives a triple test, but so sideways now. And we've turned here several times. Same context as before, coming off those overnight highs. All the uptrends have played out strong. Bearish leg into that EMA without much buying after, just sideways. So that would have worked probably for a scalp, but I don't think you can take it. Pushes out of that little mini range, comes back in, and you technically get a fail second entry along here, but it's right into the support. It's just kind of no man's land for both sides. So in my opinion, I don't think you can take that. It's kind of sideways too. EMA is really flat. Does work, sells off strongly. Close outside, new low from this little micro downtrend, but just sideways chop. Pushes higher, and then that's 330, nothing through here. So ended up closing right in the middle of the overnight lows and highs, right at that midline. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed that. Looks like day was still pretty, not really all that slow, but not too many setups. I'm seeing large second entry short and more locally a second entry short off potential range resistance. You got the lower high with expecting a possible retest from this downward move. You got the failed second entry short at this midline here. You got the just very, very nice setup, the second entry long, expecting a retest of this little micro uptrend and also bouncing at the midline of this big one. And then you've got the higher low that I think is a little too aggressive due to its location. And then finally, you've got this triple test here, expecting a retest on this golden uptrend. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed that. Got pretty used to these big downhill days, so we may range for a while or even correct. We're pretty oversold in the daily. So we'll just see what happens over the next few days. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.